Okay, what we're looking at here is the Ribozu input user interface. And any text that you enter into the system will go through this interface. And the text then can be viewed in a variety of different document types. If you click the options menu, you can see the different document types here. Nodes is what we're in right now. There's outline, document, checklist, slides, and tests. Let's go back to nodes, and we're going to go ahead and probably the best way to demonstrate how Ribozu works is to create a test. So let's test our knowledge of some of the Canadian provincial capitals. Okay, now we jump in here by tapping on that node, and we're going to add our questions and answers. And I'm going to show you a really cool way of nesting answers in questions. So the first answer to our question is Victoria. Its question is British Columbia. Essentially, what is the capital of British Columbia? So we're going to enter Victoria. Now we select Victoria, checkbox it, and now I'm going to enter British Columbia. And now I commit that by hitting go, and we'll see that Victoria has 0 nodes underneath it. British Columbia will now have 1. When we tap on British Columbia, we'll see that Victoria was nested in there and British Columbia became the header. We can tap on British Columbia, and now we're back to British Columbia. So under the heading Canadian Provincial Capitals, we've got British Columbia as our first question with an answer of Victoria. Now I'm going to go ahead and add 4 more just to complete our test here. Toronto, Ontario, Winnipeg, Manitoba. Okay, so now I'm going to do it where I enter the province first and then the capital, which is the question first, and then the answer. Quebec, Quebec City. Okay, so we need to put Quebec City into Quebec. So we checkbox Quebec City and we long hold Quebec. And we move it into Quebec. Oops, let's get rid of that. Didn't mean to have that turn on. And how many questions do we have here? Okay, we've got 4 questions. Let's add 1 more. Jasper. Okay, now I know Jasper's not the right one for Alberta, but we're going to go ahead and do this, and then I'm going to demonstrate how we delete it or edit it. Alberta. Okay, now we dive into Alberta, and we can go ahead and long hold Jasper, and we can see that we can send that to the trash, or we can just go ahead and edit it. In this case, we'll go ahead and edit it. And we'll change that to Edmonton. And now we go back. We've got our 5 questions. Check Alberta, it's Edmonton. Go back here, we'll go back all the way to the top. We're at the top tier, Canadian Provincial Capitals. And now let's go ahead and take a look at this in outline mode. These numbers at the top allow you to dive into the various tiers. So at tier 2, we have the questions. At tier 3, it's the questions and the answers. So one thing I want to do too is that in a test you can have references to the answers, like why these are the right answers, or just mnemonics that help you remember those answers or whatever, but they won't show up in the test themselves. They're just references that you can refer to after you've taken the test. So for Victoria, we'll just dive into Victoria here. I'm going to go ahead and find Victoria by going to the search. Victoria. And now I can tap on Victoria here, and it jumps me to the Victoria node. If I go up, you can see that it's in British Columbia. Tap in it again, I'm in Victoria. I'm going to go ahead and add a reference to it, just some interesting information about Victoria, so it helps me remember that Victoria is actually the capital of British Columbia. Victoria is one of the oldest cities in the Pacific Northwest. It is also the second oldest Chinatown in North America, next to San Francisco. Okay, so now I have two references in here for Victoria. We can go back to our outline, and we can take a look at it here. On the fourth tier, we see that we have the references added in the outline. Now I'm going to go back to actually, let's go ahead and take the test. So we go ahead and select tests. And it says how to create a test. Go back to the nodes view, enter a title for your test, like my quiz, then long hold and label it as a test. In our case, our title was Canadian provincial capitals, so we can go ahead and go back to nodes. Canadian provincial capitals was our test name, so we're just going to go ahead and long hold, label as test. So now it's labeled as a test. Now let's go back to the tests, and now we can see that it's actually in our test list. If we had more tests in here, they would show up, and we could combine them by selecting the checkbox. In this case, we'll just start with Canadian provincial capitals and start our test. Victoria, Toronto, Ontario. We'll say Edmonton is Manitoba. I know it's wrong, but we'll just do that for fun. Quebec is Quebec City, and Alberta is Edmonton, and done. So now we've got 80% in this test, and if we go back and take a look, it tells us that Winnipeg was for Manitoba. But if we go to British Columbia, we can take a look at that, and we can see here's where our references actually show up. It didn't show up in the test itself, but it shows up as a reference. So now we go back to our nodes, and I want to show you one more cool thing that you can do here. Let's go into our test here, and we're going to add a repeat question. Repeat, colon, what is the capital city of? Now I'm going to edit this here, and I'm going to add blank, 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 3 underlines there, and put a question mark on the end of that. The provincial, or the provinces, will actually show up as replacements for the blank there. We hit go, and now let's rerun our test. See how British Columbia is actually inserted into that question. What is the capital of British Columbia? Victoria, Toronto, Ontario, Winnipeg, Manitoba. Oh, here's an interesting one. None of the above was added automatically as a choice. Quebec, Edmonton. Got 100%. And that concludes the test. So I think that demonstrates fairly clearly how nodes are used, how we can actually view items in an outline. And document view is this very similar. It tells you how many words, what the read time is. And if you want to create slides, it gives you a tutorial on how to use slides and a tutorial on how to create checklists. And that concludes our little demo for today. Thank you for watching. Bye.